The greatest conflict you will ever face is not found in the external world or the demands of your career, but in the quiet, often violent tension between the person you currently are and the person you know you could become. Most of us spend our lives trapped in a cycle of self-improvement that feels more like a civil war than a journey of growth, swinging wildly between the whip of a demanding ego and the soft, sometimes lethargic cushion of self-excuse. We believe that to change, we must first despise our current state, using shame as a fuel to propel us toward a better version of ourselves. Yet this internal friction creates a heat that eventually burns out the soul, leaving us exhausted, bitter, and fundamentally unchanged in the ways that matter most. True transformation requires a radical departure from this binary of self-hatred and stagnant comfort, calling instead for a sophisticated architecture of the spirit. It is here, at the intersection of rigorous personal accountability and profound emotional safety, that we find the path to an unshakable sense of self. We must learn to hold ourselves to the highest standards of conduct while simultaneously offering ourselves the kind of grace that is usually reserved for a cherished friend. This is the noble pursuit of those who seek to dwell within a higher state of consciousness, a journey we explore deeply here at the Elevated Within, where the refinement of the character meets the expansion of the heart. By integrating the stoic, results-driven discipline of a master philosopher with the compassionate, humanistic warmth of a master psychologist, we create a framework for living that is both productive and peaceful. We begin by acknowledging that the most important relationship you will ever cultivate is the one you have with your own reflection. If that relationship is based on a conditional contract of performance, your self-esteem will always be a house of cards, ready to tumble at the first sign of failure. However, if you can build a foundation of unconditional worth and then erect a structure of daily discipline upon it, you become a force of nature that is both resilient and evolving. The philosophy of personal responsibility serves as the first pillar of this grand architecture, famously championed by the idea that we cannot change the circumstances, the seasons, or the direction of the wind, but we can always change ourselves. This is a sobering and empowering realization that strips away the crutches of victimhood and places the steering wheel of destiny firmly in our hands. It suggests that while we are not responsible for everything that happens to us, we are entirely responsible for how we respond and the disciplines we choose to cultivate in the aftermath. This perspective demands a level of honesty that most people find uncomfortable because it removes the possibility of blaming the economy, the upbringing, or the weather for a lack of progress. When you accept that you are the primary architect of your life, the quality of your daily habits becomes a matter of integrity rather than just a means to an end. Discipline is redefined not as a punishment you endure to get a reward, but as the outward expression of your internal philosophy. It is the practice of keeping promises to yourself, which is the only way to build a reputation with your own soul. Without this commitment to action, self-love can easily degenerate into a form of passive denial, where we accept our limitations not as starting points for growth, but as permanent boundaries that we refuse to challenge. However, the weight of this responsibility can become crushing if it is not balanced by the second pillar, which is the radical concept of unconditional positive regard. This is the understanding that your value as a human being is inherent and cannot be increased by your successes or diminished by your failures. It is the psychological climate that allows a person to truly see themselves without the distorting lens of judgment. The curious paradox of human nature is that we cannot change until we first accept ourselves exactly as we are, because only in a state of acceptance do we have the safety required to look at our flaws honestly. When we operate from a place of self-contempt, our energy is diverted into defense mechanisms, denial, and the numbing of the pain that comes from our own internal criticism. We become like a garden that is being trampled by a gardener who hates the weeds so much that he destroys the soil in his attempt to pull them out. Rogers taught us that the human organism has an innate tendency toward growth and fulfillment, much like a seed has the blueprint for a tree. If the environment is right, the growth happens naturally. And the most critical part of that environment is the internal atmosphere of non-judgmental awareness. The synthesis of these two seemingly opposing forces is where the magic of unshakable self-esteem resides. We need the structure of discipline to give our lives direction and meaning, and we need the safety of unconditional love to give our lives peace and resilience. Without the warmth of self-acceptance, the cold steel of discipline becomes a form of internal tyranny that leads to chronic stress and a fragile ego that breaks under pressure. Conversely, without the direction of discipline, self-acceptance becomes a stagnant pool of potential that never flows toward the sea of achievement. Imagine a mentor who expects the absolute best from you, who knows your potential is vast and will not let you settle for mediocrity, yet who also loves you so deeply that their regard for you never wavers, even when you fall flat on your face. This is the voice we must learn to cultivate within ourselves. It is a voice that says, I love you too much to let you stay where you are, and I love you too much to judge you for how you got here. This integrated approach allows us to pursue excellence without the fear of losing our worth, making every effort an act of self-expression rather than a desperate plea for validation. The internal conflict most people suffer from is the result of a divided house, where one part of the self is trying to whip the other part into shape. This creates a state of incongruence, where our actions and our feelings are constantly at odds. We try to force ourselves into a mold of who we think we should be, ignoring the actual needs and signals of our own being. By merging these two philosophies, we stop trying to be someone else and start the process of becoming who we actually are at our highest potential. We realize that discipline is not about changing our essence, but about refining our expression. To begin this process of integration, we must first conduct a thorough audit of the internal dictator that currently runs the show. Most of us have a voice in our heads that is far more cruel and demanding than any external boss or critic would ever dare to be. This voice uses words like should, must, and ought to, creating a perpetual state of debt to an idealized version of ourselves that doesn't exist. When we fail a task or miss a goal, this dictator moves in with a barrage of insults, convincing us that our failure in a specific area is actually a failure of our entire being. This internal audit requires you to step back and observe the way you talk to yourself during moments of weakness or disappointment. You must become a neutral observer of your own internal dialogue, noticing the tone, the vocabulary, and the underlying assumptions of your self-talk. Are you using shame as a motivational tool? Do you withhold kindness from yourself until you have earned it through some external achievement? Recognizing this pattern is the first step in dismantling the tyranny and replacing it with a more sophisticated form of self-governance. Write down the specific phrases your internal critic uses when you make a mistake. Look at them on the paper and ask yourself if you would ever speak to a child, a friend, or even a stranger in that manner. Usually, the answer is a resounding no. This realization highlights the profound lack of unconditional regard we have for ourselves. Once these patterns are exposed to the light of conscious awareness, they lose their power to control your emotional state. You can then begin to replace the dictator with a nurturing commander who provides clear instructions and high expectations, but does so from a foundation of unwavering support. The unshakable self is not a person who never fails, but a person who has a consistent way of handling failure. When the disciplined mind meets the accepting heart, a failure is seen as a data point, a seasonal shift, or a temporary setback, rather than a permanent stain on the character. You take responsibility for the error, as the philosophy of discipline demands, but you do not allow that error to define your value, as the philosophy of love requires. This allows for a rapid recovery and a return to the necessary actions that will produce the desired results. As you move forward, remember that you are both the marble and the sculptor. The sculptor must be precise and firm with the chisel, knowing exactly what needs to be removed to reveal the masterpiece within. But the sculptor must also respect the stone, understanding its grain, its strengths, and its unique properties. If the sculptor hates the stone, he will shatter it. If he is too afraid to touch it, the masterpiece remains hidden. Building unshakable self-esteem is the art of chiseling away the habits and thoughts that no longer serve you, while holding the core of your being in a state of absolute and eternal reverence. The blueprint of a life is drawn in the quiet space between who you are today and the vision of the person you aspire to become. This distance is the primary site of human struggle, a psychological expanse where self-esteem is either forged in the heat of conscious action or eroded by the acid of silent shame. Carl Rogers identified this tension as the relationship between the real self and the ideal self, suggesting that our mental well-being is directly tied to the degree of overlap between these two entities. When the version of yourself that exists in reality is far removed from the version that exists in your aspirations, the resulting incongruence creates a profound sense of anxiety. We often attempt to bridge this gap through the sheer force of will, yet if the bridge is built on a foundation of self-rejection, it will never hold the weight of a sustained transformation. To move toward a state of congruence, we must understand that the ideal self should function as a lighthouse rather than a judge. It is meant to provide a direction for our journey, not a reason to condemn our current location on the map. Most people allow the gap between their reality and their potential to be filled with the toxic fog of inadequacy, which obscures the path forward and makes every step feel like a heavy burden. This shame is the greatest enemy of progress because it convinces us that we are fundamentally flawed, rather than simply being in a state of becoming. If we are to build an unshakable sense of self, we must learn to look at the distance between our current state and our ultimate goals with a sense of clinical curiosity and compassionate resolve. This is where the rigorous personal philosophy of Jim Rohn provides the necessary structure to the fluid empathy of Rogers. Rohn famously taught that your personal philosophy is the major factor in how your life works out, serving as the set of the sail that determines your final destination, regardless of which way the wind blows. While we cannot control the economic weather or the seasonal shifts of fortune, we have absolute authority over the ideas we choose to believe and the standards we choose to uphold. A weak philosophy is like a sail full of holes, allowing the winds of circumstance to dictate our movement and leaving us stranded in the doldrums of mediocrity. By developing a robust internal logic, we create a filter through which all information and experience must pass, ensuring that we remain the masters of our own trajectory. The synthesis of these two pillars results in what we call a living philosophy, a framework where your daily actions are the direct reflection of your most deeply held values. We do not achieve congruence by trying harder to be someone we are not, but by aligning our Rohn-style disciplines with our Rogers-style authenticity. This means that your habits are no longer just tasks on a checklist. They are sacred rituals that honor the truth of who you are. When you act in alignment with your internal compass, the friction between your real and ideal selves begins to dissipate, replaced by a sense of integrity that radiates from the core of your being. You are no longer performing for an imaginary audience or chasing a ghost of perfection, but are instead engaged in the noble work of self-actualization. To construct this architecture of the self, you must first identify the three core values that define your unique human experience. These values are the Rogers pillar of your foundation, representing the qualities that make you feel most alive, most honest, and most connected to your purpose. They are not the values you think you should have or the ones that society deems impressive, but the ones that resonate in the marrow of your bones. Perhaps your values are courage, stillness, and contribution, or perhaps they are curiosity, vitality, and order. Whatever they may be, they must be chosen with a radical level of honesty, stripping away the layers of external expectation until you find the bedrock of your character. Once these values are established, you apply the Rohn pillar by assigning a single daily minimum discipline to each one. This discipline is the non-negotiable floor of your existence, a small but significant action that you commit to performing every single day without exception. It is not a grand, sweeping gesture that requires a massive surge of motivation, but a minor fundamental that is easy to do and just as easy not to do. If your value is vitality, Your daily minimum might be a 20-minute walk or the consumption of a specific amount of water. If your value is wisdom, it might be reading 5 pages of a transformative book or spending 10 minutes in contemplative silence. The power of the daily minimum discipline lies in its ability to build an unbreakable reputation with yourself. Every time you complete that small task, you're sending a powerful signal to your subconscious that you are a person who keeps their promises. This is the secret to closing the gap between the real and the ideal self. You do not leap across the chasm in a single bound. You fill the void one small, disciplined action at a time. Over weeks and months, these minor disciplines accumulate into a massive reservoir of self-trust, creating a level of confidence that cannot be shaken by external criticism or temporary setbacks. This process transforms discipline from a cold, mechanical necessity into a profound act of self-love. You are no longer forcing yourself to work out because you hate your body. You are moving your body because you value vitality and want to honor the vessel that carries your soul. You are not waking up early to prove your worth to the world. You are rising with the sun because you value the stillness of the morning and the opportunity to design your day with intention. When discipline is fueled by value rather than shame, it becomes sustainable, joyful, and deeply integrated into your identity. You stop fighting against yourself and start flowing toward your potential with the grace of a river moving toward the sea. The architecture of the self requires constant maintenance and a willingness to adjust the sails as you gain more insight into your own nature. As you grow, your core values may shift, and your daily disciplines may need to evolve to meet the demands of your expanding vision. This is the fluid process of becoming that Rogers champion, where the self is not a fixed destination, but a continuous unfolding of potential. By maintaining a rigid commitment to your philosophy while remaining open to the internal signals of your heart, you create a life that is both stable and dynamic. You become a person of substance, someone who is grounded in their principles, yet flexible enough to navigate the complexities of the human experience. The integration of these two philosophies allows you to stand in the center of your life with a quiet, unshakable confidence. You know exactly who you are because you have done the deep work of defining your values, and you know exactly where you are going because you have set your sail with the disciplines of a master. The opinions of others become mere background noise, unable to penetrate the fortress of your self-respect. You are no longer a victim of the wind or a prisoner of your own judgment. You are the architect, the builder, and the inhabitant of a self that is constructed on the twin peaks of discipline and love, moving ever closer to that point of perfect congruence where the person you are and the person you dream of being become one and the same. This internal harmony is not a gift bestowed upon a lucky few, but a result that is earned through the consistent application of basic fundamentals. It requires the courage to look at your reflection without flinching and the persistence to do the work when the initial excitement has faded. We must reject the modern obsession with quick fixes and superficial affirmations, recognizing that true self-esteem is a byproduct of character, not a prerequisite for it. Character is built in the moments when no one is watching, in the small choices that align our reality with our ideals. It is the cumulative effect of 1,000 minor victories over the urge to settle for less than we are capable of becoming. As you walk this path, you will find that the world begins to respond to you differently. When you carry yourself with the weight of a well-defined philosophy and the lightness of a self-accepting heart, you command a natural authority that cannot be faked. People are drawn to the stability of an integrated human being, sensing the strength that comes from a house that is no longer divided against itself. Your presence becomes an invitation for others to begin their own journey of integration, showing them that it is possible to be both ambitious and at peace, both disciplined and kind. You become a living testament to the power of a philosophy that is rooted in the truth of the human spirit. The journey toward congruence is the most significant undertaking of your life, demanding everything you have and promising more than you can currently imagine. It is a path of constant refinement, where every challenge is an opportunity to test the strength of your sails and every failure is a chance to deepen your capacity for self-compassion. By merging the stoic clarity of the philosopher with the empathic warmth of the psychologist, you have equipped yourself with the ultimate tools for navigation. You are no longer lost at sea. You are a navigator who understands the stars, respects the ocean, and trusts the vessel. The horizon is no longer a boundary, but a call to continue the endless process of becoming. The internal monologue is the primary architect of your reality, a relentless stream of data that either constructs a fortress of confidence or erodes the very foundation of your potential. Every thought you entertain acts as a brick in the wall of your self-concept, and the language you choose to describe your experiences is the mortar that holds it all together. Most people are unaware that they are living in a state of constant linguistic malpractice, using words that strip them of their power and feelings that they have never learned to properly translate. To build a self that cannot be shaken, you must transform the way you speak to yourself, moving from a relationship of internal tyranny to one of sophisticated, high-performance empathy. This transformation begins with the profound pillar of empathic understanding, a concept that requires you to become an active, non-judgmental listener to your own internal world. We often treat our emotions as inconveniences or obstacles to be overcome, rather than as vital signals from the core of our being. When you feel a pang of anxiety, a surge of anger, or the heavy weight of disappointment, the standard response is to either suppress the feeling or to judge yourself for having it. This creates a state of internal noise where the true needs of the self are drowned out by the static of self-criticism, leaving you disconnected from your own internal compass. To practice true empathic understanding, you must learn to sit with your feelings without immediately trying to change them or fix them. You observe the sensation in your body and the thoughts in your mind with the curiosity of a scientist and the warmth of a devoted friend. You say to yourself, I notice that I am feeling overwhelmed right now, and that is an understandable response to the pressure I am under. This simple act of acknowledgement creates a space of safety within your own mind, allowing the emotional energy to move through you rather than becoming a permanent blockage. When you listen to your gut feelings without judgment, you tap into a source of wisdom that is far more profound than the superficial logic of the ego. Your body and your subconscious mind are constantly processing information that your conscious mind might miss, communicating through subtle shifts in energy and intuition. By validating these internal signals, you stop the civil war within your spirit and begin to operate as a unified whole. This internal alignment is the prerequisite for any lasting discipline, because you cannot effectively lead a self that you do not fundamentally understand or respect. However, empathy without direction can lead to a state of passive acceptance that lacks the momentum required for greatness. This is where we integrate the power of language, a pillar that demands a meticulous and intentional selection of the words we use to define our journey. The vocabulary you use doesn't just describe your world. It actually creates the boundaries of what is possible for you. If you tell yourself that you can't do something, you have issued a command to your brain to stop looking for solutions and to accept defeat as a foregone conclusion. The shift in language is subtle, but its impact is tectonic, moving you from a victim of circumstance to a master of your own development. Instead of saying, I can't handle this, you learn to say, I don't yet have the discipline required to navigate this with ease. The word yet is one of the most powerful tools in the arsenal of a high-performance mind, because it acknowledges the current reality while simultaneously asserting the inevitability of growth. It transforms a permanent limitation into a temporary state of learning, placing the responsibility for change squarely back in your own hands. When you change your language, you change the chemical response within your body, shifting from a state of stress and constriction to a state of focused readiness. Words like problem are replaced with challenges, and failures are redefined as essential data points in the grand experiment of your life. You stop using the language of obligation, like I have to or I should, and start using the language of choice, like I choose to or I am committed to. This linguistic precision ensures that every action you take, is an expression of your own agency rather than a reaction to external pressure. The synthesis of these two pillars creates the nurturing commander, a sophisticated internal voice that possesses the kindness of a master therapist and the clarity of a world-class mentor. This voice does not coddle you, nor does it berate you. It speaks the truth with a tone of unwavering support and high expectation. It is the voice that says, I see that you are tired, and I understand why you want to quit. But I also know who you are and what you are capable of, so we are going to take the next step together. It provides the emotional safety you need to be honest about your struggles while maintaining the structural integrity of your commitments. The nurturing commander understands that discipline is the highest form of self-care, a gift that you give to your future self to ensure your long-term fulfillment. It doesn't use shame to motivate you, because it knows that shame is a low-grade fuel that eventually destroys the engine of the soul. Instead, it uses the vision of your potential as a magnetic force, drawing you forward through the power of inspiration and the logic of cause and effect. This integrated voice allows you to be rigorous with your standards while being gentle with your humanity, creating a psychological environment where excellence can flourish. To bring this philosophy into the physical world, you must engage in the practice of the mirror dialogue, a 2-minute ritual that bridges the gap between your internal thoughts and your external reality. You stand before your own reflection, looking directly into your eyes, and you begin the first minute with pure Roger-style empathy. You acknowledge exactly where you are, the struggles you are facing, and the emotions you are carrying, without any attempt to sugarcoat or deflect. You might say, I see that you are feeling discouraged because you didn't meet your goals today, and I want you to know that it's okay to feel that way. This first minute is about total presence and radical acceptance, providing yourself with the unconditional positive regard that is so often missing from the modern experience. By speaking these words out loud to your own reflection, you break the cycle of silent shame and bring your feelings into the light of conscious awareness. You are witnessing yourself, validating your own existence, and proving that you are a safe harbor for your own soul. This creates a foundation of peace from which the next phase of the dialogue can emerge with authentic power. The second minute of the mirror dialogue shifts into the Rohn-style commitment to a small, immediate discipline. Having acknowledged the struggle, the nurturing commander now steps forward to set the direction for the next hour or the next day. You say to the reflection, because I value your potential and I am committed to your growth, we are going to complete this one small discipline right now. This is not a demand for a massive overhaul of your life, but a focus on a minor fundamental that restores your sense of agency and reinforces your reputation with yourself. The brilliance of this exercise lies in its ability to marry emotional truth with actionable progress, ensuring that you never become lost in the heights of your aspirations or the depths of your difficulties. You are training your brain to associate the feeling of being understood with the act of taking responsibility, creating a neural pathway that leads directly to unshakable self-esteem. Over time, this dialogue becomes your default internal setting, allowing you to navigate the storms of life with a calm heart and a steady hand. You no longer fear your own reflection because you have turned it into a source of both comfort and strength. As you master this discipline of self-talk, you will find that your external results begin to mirror your internal shift. The clarity of your language leads to the clarity of your actions, and the empathy you show yourself naturally extends to the way you interact with the world around you. You become a person who is difficult to offend and impossible to discourage, because your worth is no longer tied to the fluctuating opinions of others or the temporary outcomes of your efforts. You have built an internal sanctuary where the truth is spoken with love and the work is done with joy. This is the luxury of a well-ordered mind, a state of being where the commander and the nurturer are no longer at odds, but are working in perfect harmony toward a common goal. You realize that the discipline you once viewed as a burden is actually the structure that allows your freedom to exist. Without the discipline of language, your emotions would become a chaotic flood. Without the empathy of understanding, your discipline would become a dry desert. Together, They create a lush landscape where your potential can grow into its fullest and most beautiful expression. The reputation you have with yourself is the only one that truly matters in the quiet hours of the night and the heat of the day's battles. If you can look in the mirror and know that you are a person who listens to the truth and acts with integrity, you possess a wealth that no economy can take away. You are building a self that is integrated, resilient, and profoundly alive, moving through the world with the quiet authority of someone who has nothing to prove and everything to become. The mirror is no longer a judge to be avoided, but a partner in the ongoing masterpiece of your life. Every word you speak to yourself is a seed planted in the fertile soil of your subconscious, and the harvest you reap will be determined by the quality of your internal discourse. If you plant seeds of doubt and self-contempt, you will harvest a life of anxiety and stagnation. But if you plant seeds of empathic understanding and disciplined expectation, you will harvest a life of purpose and peace. This is the fundamental law of the mind, a principle that operates with the same precision as the laws of physics or the changing of the seasons. The nurturing commander knows that the most important work you will ever do is the work you do on yourself, and that this work begins with the way you handle your own failures. When you stumble, the commander does not ask why you are so weak, but rather asks what can be learned and what is the very next step. This focus on the immediate next discipline prevents the shame spiral that so often follows a setback, keeping your momentum moving forward even in the face of adversity. You learn to fail with grace and to rise with even greater resolve, knowing that every experience is contributing to the architecture of your soul. This approach to self-esteem is not about achieving a state of perfection where you never make a mistake or feel a negative emotion. It is about developing the capacity to hold all of your human experience in a state of conscious awareness and to choose your response with wisdom and intent. It is the realization that you are the captain of your soul and the master of your fate, not because you control everything that happens to you, but because you control how you process and label those events. You are the one who decides what a situation means and what you are going to do about it. As you continue to refine your internal dialogue, you will notice a profound sense of lightness entering your life. The heavy armor of self-defense is no longer necessary when you have an internal foundation of unconditional self-love. You can afford to be vulnerable, to be curious, and to be bold because you know that your core value is secure regardless of the external outcome. This freedom allows you to engage with life more fully, to take the risks that lead to greatness, and to offer your unique gifts to the world without the paralyzing fear of rejection. The integration of Rohn's discipline and Roger's love creates a human being who is both powerful and compassionate, a combination that is as rare as it is transformative. You become a beacon of stability in a world that is often fragmented and reactive, showing others through your example what it looks like to live with a unified heart and mind. Your self-esteem becomes unshakable because it is not built on the shifting sands of achievement, but on the solid rock of a conscious, loving relationship with your own being. You are the architect of this state, and every moment of intentional self-talk is a step toward its completion. The path to an unshakable self is not a destination you reach, but a way of traveling that you choose every single day. It is found in the quiet choice to use a kinder word, in the brave decision to listen to a difficult feeling, and in the steady commitment to a small discipline when you would rather quit. These are the bricks and mortar of a life well lived, the invisible structures that support the grand visible achievements of your existence. You are doing the work that few are willing to do, and as a result, you will experience a level of fulfillment that few will ever know. The mirror dialogue is your daily appointment with destiny, a time to realign your sails and reconnect with your core. It is the practice of being fully human and fully committed, embracing the messiness of the process while never losing sight of the beauty of the goal. You are training yourself to be the kind of person who can handle anything life throws at you, because you have already handled the most difficult person you will ever meet, yourself. With the nurturing commander at the helm, there is no storm you cannot navigate and no horizon you cannot reach. The mind is not a machine to be programmed or a slave to be whipped, but a living, breathing ecosystem that operates under the ancient and indifferent laws of the natural world. To understand the construction of an unshakable self, we must first accept the fundamental reality that we are both the architect of the landscape and the biological life force that inhabits it. This brings us to the profound intersection of cause and effect, where the deliberate labor of the planter meets the mysterious, inherent drive of the seed to reach for the sun. We often approach our personal growth with a frantic, industrial energy, trying to manufacture a version of ourselves that looks successful while ignoring the quality of the soil from which our actions emerge. However, true self-esteem is the natural harvest of a life lived in harmony with the law of sowing and reaping, a principle that suggests our current reality is the inevitable result of the seeds we have planted in the past. Success in the realm of the spirit is neither magical nor mysterious, but is the predictable consequence of consistently applying basic fundamentals to the garden of the consciousness. If you plant the seeds of neglect, indecision, and self-betrayal, the soil of your mind will faithfully return a crop of anxiety, confusion, and a fragile sense of worth. The earth does not care about your intentions or your excuses. It only responds to the nature of the seed and the quality of the care it receives. When we realize that our internal state is a direct reflection of our daily disciplines, we move from the role of a victim to the role of a master gardener. This shift requires us to stop looking at our flaws as moral failures and start seeing them as the natural weeds that grow in any untended space. While the labor of planting and weeding is essential, the process is incomplete without a deep trust in the organismic valuing process that resides within every human being. This is the inherent wisdom of the seed, which already contains the blueprint for its highest expression and will naturally move toward growth if the environment is conducive to its survival. We do not have to teach a rose how to be a rose, nor do we have to force our own potential to exist. We simply have to remove the obstacles that prevent our natural expansion. This internal compass is always pointing toward wholeness, health, and integration, provided we have the courage to listen to its quiet guidance. When the environment of the mind is saturated with judgment and conditional acceptance, this growth process is stunted, and the seed remains dormant in a state of defensive preservation. The synthesis of these two perspectives creates a powerful framework for living where we become both the diligent gardener and the cherished seed. We engage in the hard work of discipline and character refinement, not because we are trying to fix a broken thing, but because we value the precious life force that we have been entrusted to cultivate. Our labor becomes an act of stewardship rather than an act of war against our own nature, allowing us to pursue excellence from a foundation of profound self-respect. We weed the garden of our habits because we want the beauty of our true selves to be visible, not because we despise the current state of the soil. This subtle shift in motivation changes everything, transforming the cold steel of personal responsibility into a warm, life-giving light that nourishes our development. Imagine the internal peace that comes from knowing that your worth is a constant, biological reality, while your progress is a variable that you have the power to influence through your choices. This realization allows you to work with a sense of urgency and precision without the paralyzing fear that your value as a human being is on the line with every effort. You are free to experiment, to fail, and to learn because the soil of your being is held in a state of unconditional positive regard that no temporary setback can diminish. This is the climate of growth, a psychological atmosphere where the rigorous demands of discipline are met with the gentle support of a compassionate heart. In this space, the law of the harvest becomes a promise of eventual triumph rather than a threat of future punishment. To truly master the garden of the mind, we must look closely at the weeds that have taken root in the shadows of our daily lives. A weed is simply a plant that is growing in the wrong place, often a habit or a thought pattern that was originally developed as a way to protect us or meet a basic human need. We often try to rip these habits out with a sense of violent self-disgust, only to find that they grow back stronger because we have not addressed the underlying conditions that allowed them to flourish. Instead of judging a negative habit, we must seek to understand what specific need it is trying to meet, approaching our darker impulses with the curiosity of a scientist. Once we identify the purpose behind the weed, we can provide a more constructive way to satisfy that need, allowing the old habit to wither away naturally as it is replaced by a superior discipline. Consider the habit of procrastination, which is often a thick and thorny weed that chokes out the productivity of our most promising seasons. From a place of self-contempt, we label ourselves as lazy or undisciplined, creating a toxic internal environment that only makes the task ahead feel more daunting. However, if we look at procrastination through the lens of empathic understanding, we might find that it is a misguided attempt to protect ourselves from the pain of potential failure or the pressure of perfection. The weed is trying to provide a temporary sense of safety, even though it ultimately destroys the garden it inhabits. By acknowledging this need for safety, we can offer ourselves the grace of a smaller, less intimidating starting point, replacing the massive burden of the goal with a minor discipline that is easy to manage. A minor discipline is the smallest possible unit of progress, a tiny seed that is easy to plant and simple to maintain, yet possesses the power to transform the entire landscape over time. It is the fundamental practice of doing what you said you would do, in a way that is so manageable that failure is nearly impossible. If you want to build a garden of physical vitality, the minor discipline is not a grueling 2-hour workout, but a 5-minute walk taken with intentionality and pride. If you seek a harvest of wisdom, it is not the consumption of an entire library, but the reading of a single page with deep focus and reflection. These small acts are the building blocks of self-esteem because they provide consistent, undeniable evidence that you are a person of integrity and action. The beauty of the minor discipline is that it honors both the need for progress and the need for psychological safety. It allows the seed of your potential to break through the surface of the soil without being overwhelmed by the harsh winds of unrealistic expectation. As you accumulate these small victories, the reputation you have with yourself begins to shift, and the soil of your mind becomes more fertile and resilient. You are no longer fighting against the gravity of your own resistance. You are building a momentum that carries you toward your goals with the quiet power of a rising tide. The law of sowing and reaping ensures that these tiny investments will eventually yield a massive return, provided you do not grow weary in the season of planting. We must also recognize that the environment of the garden is influenced by the thoughts we allow to drift through our consciousness like pollen on the wind. If we are constantly exposed to the toxic ideas of others or the soul-crushing noise of a culture obsessed with superficiality, our internal ecosystem will suffer. We have the responsibility to guard the gates of our mind, choosing with great care what information we consume and what influences we allow to take root. This is the discipline of mental hygiene, a fundamental practice that ensures our internal world remains a sanctuary of growth rather than a dumping ground for the anxieties of the world. By curating our mental environment, we provide the seed of our potential with the purest possible nutrients, allowing it to grow into a form that is both strong and beautiful. The process of becoming a fully functioning person is not a destination we reach through a single burst of effort, but a fluid and continuous journey of alignment. It is the art of moving toward a state where our external actions are a perfect reflection of our internal values, and where the gardener and the garden are in a state of constant, harmonious dialogue. This requires us to be sensitive to the feedback our life is giving us, noticing when a particular discipline is no longer serving our growth, or when a new weed is beginning to sprout. We do not fear these changes. We welcome them as signs of a healthy, evolving system that is always seeking a higher state of complexity and integration. The unshakable self is the one that is flexible enough to adapt while remaining firmly rooted in the bedrock of its own principles. As we walk through the rows of our internal landscape, we must learn to appreciate the beauty of the process itself, rather than obsessing over the final harvest. There is a profound dignity in the act of sowing, a nobility in the daily labor of weeding, and a sacredness in the quiet waiting that follows the planting. When we find joy in the fundamentals, the pressure to produce immediate results begins to lift, replaced by a deep confidence in the inevitability of the laws of nature. We know that the harvest is coming because we have done the work and we have honored the seed. This patience is the highest form of self-trust, a calm assurance that the universe and our own nature are working together to bring our potential into reality. True discipline is never a punishment. It is the structure that allows the life force to flow with maximum impact and efficiency. Just as a trellis provides the support a vine needs to climb toward the light, our daily habits provide the framework our spirit needs to reach its highest expression. Without the trellis, the vine crawls along the ground, tangled in the dirt and vulnerable to the trampling of every passing foot. With the support of a well-designed philosophy, we are lifted above the mundane struggles of survival and given the opportunity to bloom in the open air of our own choosing. This is the luxury of a disciplined life, a state of being where we are no longer at the mercy of our impulses or the whims of the environment. The unshakable self is forged in the moments when we choose the long-term health of the garden over the short-term comfort of neglect. It is built every time we pick up the tools of our philosophy and engage in the work of refinement, even when the clouds are dark and the results seem far away. This persistence is not a form of grim endurance, but a celebration of our own agency and a testament to the value we place on our own existence. We are the creators of our own meaning, the writers of our own story, and the masters of our own harvest. By merging the rigorous accountability of the philosopher with the profound empathy of the psychologist, we create a life that is both productive and peaceful, both disciplined and free. The garden of the mind is a reflection of the soul, a living testament to the quality of the relationship we have cultivated with ourselves. When visitors look upon the landscape of our lives, they should see the evidence of a gardener who loves the work and a seed that has been given every opportunity to flourish. They should see the strength of the trees, the vibrancy of the flowers, and the order of the paths, all of which point to a deep internal harmony. But more importantly, when we look upon our own garden, we should feel a sense of homecoming and a profound recognition of our own handiwork. We are the ones who lived through the seasons, who endured the storms, and who celebrated the sunshine, and the unshakable self is the person who has become one with the process. This integration of labor and love is the ultimate achievement of the human experience, a state of being where the conflict between what we should do and what we want to do finally dissolves. We want to do the work because we love the result, and we love the result because we know the work that went into it. The law of sowing and reaping is not a burden to be carried, but a rhythm to be danced to, a natural cycle that brings us closer to the truth of who we are with every passing season. As we move forward, we carry the tools of our discipline in one hand and the grace of our self-acceptance in the other, ready to meet whatever the next season may bring. The garden is waiting, the seeds are in our hands, and the soil is ready for the transformation that only we can provide. The cycle of the seasons is the most profound teacher of the human condition, offering a blueprint for resilience that transcends the temporary highs of motivation and the crushing lows of disappointment. Jim Rohn observed that the winters of life are not accidents or personal attacks from the universe, but inevitable periods of contraction that follow every harvest. These winters represent the times when the disciplines fail, the results vanish, and the internal landscape becomes cold and barren. Most people meet these seasons with a sense of shock and betrayal, as if the world has broken a promise by allowing the temperature to drop. They view the onset of hardship as a sign of their own inadequacy, failing to realize that the winter is a necessary part of the grand design of growth. When the frost of failure sets in, the natural human tendency is to retreat into a fortress of psychological defense. Carl Rogers identified this as the moment when the ego attempts to protect itself from the pain of incongruence through denial and distortion. We look at our missed goals or our broken promises, and we begin to rewrite the narrative to avoid the stinging realization that we have fallen short of our ideals. We blame the economy, the timing, or the people around us, creating a distorted version of reality that preserves our fragile self-image at the cost of our personal growth. This internal dishonesty is the true source of our suffering, because it prevents us from accurately assessing the situation and making the necessary adjustments to survive the cold. The most dangerous aspect of these defense mechanisms is that they create a wall between who we are and the truth of our experience. When we deny our failures, we also deny ourselves the opportunity to learn from them, effectively freezing our development in a state of permanent immaturity. The ego believes it is performing a service by shielding us from the shame of being imperfect, but in reality, it is trapping us in a cycle of repetition. We become like a traveler who refuses to admit they are lost, continuing to walk in the wrong direction while insisting that the map is flawed. To build unshakable self-esteem, we must learn to dismantle these defenses and face the winter with a level of radical honesty that is only possible through unconditional self-love. Unconditional self-love is the ultimate insulation against the harshness of the seasonal shifts, providing the warmth and security needed to look at our failures without flinching. It is the psychological shield that allows us to experience the pain of a setback without allowing that pain to turn into the poison of self-contempt. When we know that our value as a human being is not on the line, we no longer have to lie to ourselves about the quality of our performance. We can admit that we missed the mark, that we were lazy, or that we were afraid, because these admissions do not threaten our fundamental right to exist and be loved. This state of acceptance creates a clarity of vision that is the prerequisite for any effective discipline. The shame spiral is the primary reason why most people stay in their personal winters far longer than necessary. When a discipline is broken, the internal dictator moves in with a barrage of criticism, convincing the individual that they are a failure rather than someone who has simply failed at a task. This weight of shame makes the effort of starting again feel insurmountable, leading to further neglect and deeper despair. We become paralyzed by the fear of our own judgment, hiding from the very actions that would lead us back into the sun. By integrating the Rogers pillar of acceptance, we cut the power to this spiral, allowing ourselves to return to the Rohn pillar of discipline with a light heart and a clear mind. To navigate the transition from failure to renewed action, we must implement a sophisticated failure protocol that bridges the gap between emotional safety and personal accountability. This protocol begins the moment you realize you have fallen short of your standards or missed a commitment you made to yourself. The first step is to acknowledge the feeling with total transparency, identifying the specific emotions that the failure has triggered within your body. You might feel a sense of heavy disappointment, a sharp pang of regret, or a dull ache of inadequacy. By naming the feeling, you bring it out of the shadows and into the light of conscious awareness, where it can be processed rather than suppressed. This initial acknowledgement is a profound act of Roger-style empathy, where you give yourself permission to feel the full weight of the experience without judgment. You are not trying to fix the feeling or talk yourself out of it. You are simply being a witness to your own humanity. This creates a state of internal presence that is both grounding and liberating, proving to yourself that you are capable of handling emotional discomfort. Most people run from their feelings because they fear being consumed by them, but the failure protocol teaches you that a feeling is merely a guest that passes through the house of your mind. Once the feeling has been acknowledged, its intensity begins to fade, leaving behind a space of calm and objectivity. The second step of the protocol is to accept the reality of human fallibility as an inherent part of the growth process. You remind yourself that the capacity to fail is not a defect in your character, but a feature of the biological and psychological system you inhabit. Even the most disciplined and successful individuals encounter winters where their sails are torn and their momentum is halted. By placing your failure within the context of the universal human experience, you strip it of its personal sting and its power to define you. You are not a failure for falling. You are a human being who is currently experiencing the natural consequences of a specific set of choices or circumstances. This step is the bridge between self-acceptance and self-governance, allowing you to view the situation with the clinical curiosity of a master philosopher. You look at the mechanics of the failure, identifying the specific points where the discipline broke down or the philosophy was ignored. Did you allow a minor distraction to turn into a major diversion? Did you lose sight of the long-term vision in the face of short-term discomfort? These questions are asked without the intent to blame, but with the intent to understand the cause and effect of your actions. This intellectual clarity is only possible because the emotional foundation of self-love has already been established in the previous step. The final step of the failure protocol is to identify and execute the immediate next small discipline that will restore your sense of agency. This is the Rohn-style return to fundamentals, where you stop dwelling on the magnitude of the winter and start focusing on the simple act of lighting a fire. You do not try to make up for the lost time or the missed goals in a single burst of frantic energy, as this is often just another form of self-punishment. Instead, you choose a minor, non-negotiable task that aligns with your values, and you complete it with total focus. This could be as simple as drinking a glass of water, writing one sentence in a journal, or spending 5 minutes organizing your environment. The power of this immediate next discipline lies in its ability to rebuild the reputation you have with yourself, one small promise at a time. It signals to your subconscious that the winter has not broken your spirit and that you are still the master of your own trajectory. You are moving from a state of passive reflection to a state of active participation, proving that you have the resilience to start again, regardless of the conditions. This step completes the synthesis of love and labor, allowing you to move forward without the heavy baggage of guilt or the paralyzing fear of future mistakes. You are no longer waiting for the weather to change. You are changing your internal climate through the power of your own choices. Handling the winter requires a shift in perspective that views hardship as a prerequisite for strength rather than an obstacle to it. The trees that survive the coldest winters are those that have deep roots and flexible branches, allowing them to bend under the weight of the snow without breaking. In the same way, an unshakable self-esteem is built on the deep roots of unconditional self-love and the flexible branches of a robust personal philosophy. You do not seek to avoid the winter, but to become a person who is capable of standing in the center of the storm with a sense of quiet authority. You know that the spring is inevitable, and you trust in your ability to maintain your character until the thaw begins. The internal winter is often characterized by a loss of meaning, where the goals that once inspired you now seem distant and irrelevant. This is the moment when the defense mechanism of apathy often takes hold, convincing you that the effort is not worth the pain of the struggle. You might find yourself withdrawing from your disciplines, seeking comfort in the numbing rituals of distraction and delay. Rogers understood that this apathy is a protective layer, a way of minimizing the perceived importance of our goals so that we don't have to feel the agony of not reaching them. To break through this layer, we must reconnect with the core values that give our lives direction, using them as a source of internal heat. Discipline is the practice of maintaining your values even when the feelings associated with those values have temporarily vanished. It is the commitment to the process when the passion has cooled and the results are hidden beneath the frost. Rohn taught that we must all suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, and that the pain of discipline weighs ounces while the pain of regret weighs tons. In the winter, the pain of discipline feels heavier than usual, but it is the only thing that prevents the catastrophic weight of regret from crushing our spirit. By viewing discipline as a form of self-preservation, we transform it from a burden into a lifeline. The failure protocol is not a tool you use once, but a continuous practice that you integrate into the very fabric of your existence. You will fail many times, in ways both small and large, because you are engaged in the ambitious work of self-actualization. Each failure is an opportunity to practice the art of self-forgiveness and the science of personal accountability, refining your ability to navigate the complexities of your own nature. The more you use the protocol, the faster your recovery time becomes, allowing you to move through the winters of your life with increasing grace and efficiency. You stop fearing the cold because you have mastered the art of building a fire within your own soul. The integration of these two pillars creates a personality that is both formidable and compassionate, a combination that is rare in a world that tends to favor one over the other. Most people are either hard on themselves and others, leading to a life of achievement without peace, or they are soft on themselves and others, leading to a life of peace without achievement. The unshakable self is the synthesis of these extremes, a person who is Roger soft on the inside, maintaining a climate of total acceptance, and Rohn hard on the outside, maintaining a standard of absolute discipline. This balance allows you to be a force for good in the world, providing a model of what it looks like to be a fully integrated human being. When you master the art of handling the winter, you realize that the external conditions of your life are far less important than the internal philosophy you bring to them. You can be in the middle of a financial crisis, a health struggle, or a personal loss, and still maintain a sense of profound self-worth and direction. This is because your self-esteem is no longer a hostage to your circumstances, but a byproduct of the relationship you have with your own reflection. You have built a house that is founded on the rock of unconditional love and framed with the steel of daily discipline, and it is a house that can withstand any storm. The winter becomes just another season, a time for reflection, refinement, and the quiet preparation for the growth that is to come. The defense mechanisms that Rogers described are like old, heavy coats that we put on to protect ourselves from the cold, but which eventually become so cumbersome that they prevent us from moving at all. We must have the courage to shed these layers of denial and distortion, trusting that the internal heat of our self-acceptance is enough to keep us warm. This vulnerability is the source of our greatest strength, because it allows us to be fully present with the reality of our lives. When we stop pretending that we are perfect, we can finally start the work of becoming who we actually are. The winter is the perfect time for this shedding, a season where the superficial is stripped away and only the essential remains. In the silence of the winter, the voice of the internal dictator is often at its loudest, echoing through the empty spaces of our inactivity. This is the time to consciously cultivate the voice of the nurturing commander, the integrated internal guide who speaks with both truth and tenderness. The commander reminds you of the laws of the harvest, pointing out that the seeds you plant today in the cold will be the fruits you enjoy in the summer. It encourages you to take the small, difficult steps that lead to progress, while simultaneously offering the grace you need to handle the discomfort of the journey. This voice becomes your constant companion, a source of steady guidance that never wavers regardless of the season. The failure protocol is the practical expression of this nurturing commander, a sequence of thoughts and actions that transforms a setback into a stepping stone. By moving through the three steps, acknowledgement, acceptance, and action, you are training your brain to respond to failure with resilience rather than retreat. You are creating a neural pathway that bypasses the shame spiral and leads directly to the restoration of your power. This is the essence of psychological maturity, the ability to regulate your own emotional state and maintain your momentum in the face of adversity. You are no longer a victim of your own reactions. You are the deliberate architect of your internal response. As you become more proficient in handling the winter, you will find that your fear of failure begins to dissipate, replaced by a deep sense of confidence in your ability to recover. You start playing it safe and start taking the calculated risks that are necessary for a life of significance, knowing that you have the tools to navigate whatever outcomes may arise. This freedom is the ultimate reward of an unshakable self-esteem, a state of being where you are no longer limited by the need to protect your ego. You are free to fail, free to learn, and free to become everything you were meant to be. The winter is no longer a threat. It is a training ground for the soul. The seasonal nature of life means that every winter is followed by a spring, a period of renewed energy and rapid growth. However, the quality of your spring is directly determined by how you handled the preceding winter. If you spent the cold months in a state of denial and self-contempt, you will enter the spring with a sense of exhaustion and a lack of preparation. But if you use the winter to practice the failure protocol, to refine your philosophy, and to maintain your minor disciplines, you will meet the spring with a powerful momentum. You will be like the farmer who has repaired his tools and prepared his soil while the snow was still on the ground, ready to plant the seeds of a massive harvest. This perspective allows you to find value in the difficult seasons, recognizing that the winter is when the most important work of character building takes place. It is easy to be disciplined and positive when the sun is shining and the results are flowing. But the true measure of a human being is found in how they conduct themselves when the harvest is gone. The winter tests the set of your sail and the strength of your foundation, revealing the areas where your philosophy needs to be reinforced. By embracing the winter as a necessary and valuable part of the journey, you remove its power to discourage you and turn it into a source of profound wisdom. The unshakable self is a person who has integrated the lessons of the winter into the very core of their identity. They do not look back on their failures with shame, but with a sense of gratitude for the strength and clarity those experiences provided. They understand that the scars of the winter are the marks of a survivor, the evidence of a resilience that has been tested and proven in the cold. This history of recovery becomes a reservoir of confidence that they can draw upon whenever the temperature begins to drop again. They know that they have handled the winter before, and they know that they have the tools to handle it again. The synthesis of Rohn and Rogers provides a complete map for this journey, offering both the destination of a disciplined life and the emotional safety required to travel the path. We need the structure of the Rohn pillars to give our lives meaning and impact, and we need the Rogers pillars to ensure that we don't destroy ourselves in the pursuit of those goals. Together, they create a way of living that is both sustainable and successful, a path that honors both the demands of the world and the needs of the soul. You are the one who must walk this path, and the failure protocol is the compass that will keep you moving in the right direction even when the stars are hidden by the clouds. As you move through the current winter of your life, or prepare for the one that is inevitably coming, remember that your worth is not a seasonal variable. You are as valuable in the middle of a failure as you are in the moment of your greatest triumph. The cold does not diminish your potential. It only provides the environment in which that potential can be refined. Use the failure protocol to bridge the gap between your pain and your progress, and trust in the law of the harvest to bring the results you seek. You are building something that is meant to last, a self that is unshakable, integrated, and profoundly alive, moving ever closer to the person you were always meant to become. The architecture of your life is being constructed in the choices you make during the difficult hours, in the quiet decisions to keep going when the warmth has faded. These choices are the true measure of your philosophy, the evidence of a commitment that transcends the fluctuating emotions of the moment. By merging the discipline of the master with the love of the nurturer, you have created a framework that can support the weight of your highest aspirations. You are no longer afraid of the dark or the cold, for you have discovered that the light and the heat you need are already contained within you. The winter is not an end, but a beginning, a sacred space where the unshakable self is forged in the silence of the frost. The transition from a state of self-defense to a state of self-actualization is the most significant move a human being can make, and it is a move that is made one failure at a time. Each time you choose to use the failure protocol instead of retreating into denial, you are strengthening the muscles of your character. You are proving to yourself that you are a person of integrity, someone who can be trusted to handle the truth and to take responsibility for their own development. This self-trust is the bedrock of unshakable self-esteem, a foundation that cannot be moved by the opinions of others or the changing winds of fortune. You are becoming the master of your own seasons, the navigator of your own soul. The journey continues with the realization that the winter is not just a time for survival, but a time for deep architectural design. In the quiet of the dormant season, when the external demands are less pressing, you have the opportunity to look at the blueprint of your life with a critical and creative eye. You can ask yourself if the disciplines you have been following are truly aligned with the values you hold most dear, or if you have been building a life based on someone else's plan. This is the moment to refine your vision, to adjust your sail, and to prepare for a spring that is more expansive and meaningful than any you have experienced before. The winter provides the clarity of the void, the space in which the new can be imagined and the old can be let go. The blueprint of a life is drawn in the quiet space between who you are today and the vision of the person you aspire to become. This distance is the primary site of human struggle, a psychological expanse where self-esteem is either forged in the heat of conscious action or eroded by the acid of silent shame. Carl Rogers identified this tension as the relationship between the real self and the ideal self, suggesting that our mental well-being is directly tied to the degree of overlap between these two entities. When the version of yourself that exists in reality is far removed from the version that exists in your aspirations, the resulting incongruence creates a profound sense of anxiety. We often attempt to bridge this gap through the sheer force of will, yet if the bridge is built on a foundation of self-rejection, it will never hold the weight of a sustained transformation. To move toward a state of congruence, we must understand that the ideal self should function as a lighthouse rather than a judge. It is meant to provide a direction for our journey, not a reason to condemn our current location on the map. Most people allow the gap between their reality and their potential to be filled with the toxic fog of inadequacy, which obscures the path forward and makes every step feel like a heavy burden. This shame is the greatest enemy of progress because it convinces us that we are fundamentally flawed, rather than simply being in a state of becoming. If we are to build an unshakable sense of self, we must learn to look at the distance between our current state and our ultimate goals with a sense of clinical curiosity and compassionate resolve. This is where the rigorous personal philosophy of Jim Rohn provides the necessary structure to the fluid empathy of Rogers. Rohn famously taught that your personal philosophy is the major factor in how your life works out, serving as the set of the sail that determines your final destination, regardless of which way the wind blows. While we cannot control the economic weather or the seasonal shifts of fortune, we have absolute authority over the ideas we choose to believe and the standards we choose to uphold. A weak philosophy is like a sail full of holes, allowing the winds of circumstance to dictate our movement and leaving us stranded in the doldrums of mediocrity. By developing a robust internal logic, we create a filter through which all information and experience must pass, ensuring that we remain the masters of our own trajectory. The luxury of discipline begins with the realization that if you do not design your own life plan, chances are you will fall into someone else's plan. Most people are living out a script written by their parents, their culture, or their employer, never stopping to ask if the architecture of their existence actually suits their soul. When you live by default, you are essentially a tenant in a building you did not design, constantly trying to fit your vast potential into small, cramped rooms that were never meant for you. Designing your life is the ultimate act of self-assertion, a declaration that your time, your energy, and your focus are too valuable to be squandered on a path that is not your own. This design process requires a level of intentionality that most find daunting, yet it is the only way to ensure that your daily efforts are contributing to a masterpiece rather than a tragedy. Rogers viewed life not as a fixed destination, but as a fluid process of moving toward your true potential, an ongoing journey he called the process of becoming. This perspective removes the crushing weight of perfectionism, allowing you to see your life as a work in progress that is constantly being refined and expanded. You are not a finished product waiting to be judged, but a living organism that is designed to grow, adapt, and evolve. When you embrace the process of becoming, you stop waiting for some future moment to feel worthy and start finding fulfillment in the act of growth itself. Every discipline you maintain and every goal you pursue becomes a part of this unfolding story, a tangible expression of your commitment to your own expansion. The synthesis of these two pillars leads to a radical redefinition of goal setting as a form of profound self-care. We do not set goals to prove that we are worthy of respect or love. We set them because we already are worthy of a well-designed life. This is the critical distinction that separates the high performer from the workaholic, the achiever from the striver. If you believe that your worth is a result of your achievements, you will always be a slave to the next milestone, never able to rest in the satisfaction of your progress. But if you believe that your worth is inherent, your goals become gifts that you give to yourself, opportunities to experience the full range of your capabilities and to inhabit a reality that reflects your highest values. Discipline is thus redefined as a gift you give to your future self, an investment in the quality of your own experience. When you choose to wake up early, to eat well, or to focus on your craft, you are not punishing your current self. You are honoring the person you will be tomorrow, next month, and next year. You are creating a future where you have more options, more vitality, and more peace, simply because you had the foresight to act with intention today. This perspective transforms the daily grind into a sacred labor, a series of small but significant acts of love directed toward the person you are becoming. You are building a legacy for yourself, ensuring that the version of you that exists in the future is supported by the work you do in the present. The architecture of the ideal self requires a deep understanding of the materials you are working with, which are your time, your thoughts, and your habits. Jim Rohn emphasized that it is the small, daily disciplines that lead to the massive, visible successes, just as a grand cathedral is built one stone at a time. If you neglect the small things, the entire structure of your life becomes unstable, prone to collapse under the pressure of external challenges. By focusing on the minor fundamentals, you create a foundation of reliability and consistency that serves as the bedrock of your self-esteem. You become a person who can be trusted by yourself and others, a rare quality in a world characterized by distraction and inconsistency. This architectural approach to the self allows you to be both the sculptor and the stone, simultaneously designing the form and undergoing the transformation. You are the one who decides where the walls will stand and where the windows will be placed, choosing the views you want to have of the world and the boundaries you want to maintain. This level of agency is the ultimate luxury, the freedom to create a psychological and physical environment that supports your highest aspirations. When you take responsibility for the design of your life, you stop being a victim of the wind and start being the captain of the ship, moving with purpose toward the horizon of your own choosing. The discipline required to maintain this design is not a burden, but the very mechanism of your liberation. To bridge the gap between your current reality and your ideal self, you must engage in a practice of radical communication with your own spirit. This brings us to the actionable step of writing a letter from the ideal self, a psychological exercise that merges the disciplined vision of Rohn with the unconditional love of Rogers. Imagine your future self, the person who has mastered the disciplines you are currently struggling with and who inhabits the life you are currently designing. This version of you is not a harsh critic looking back with judgment, but a wise and loving mentor who understands exactly how difficult the journey has been. They have the perspective that comes from achievement and the compassion that comes from having lived through the same struggles you are facing today. In this letter, your future, disciplined self writes to your current self with a tone of profound encouragement and unwavering support. They acknowledge the effort you are making, the fears you are facing, and the moments when you feel like giving up. They tell you that they are proud of you, not because you are perfect, but because you are staying in the process of becoming. This future self explains why the disciplines you are practicing are so important, describing the freedom and the peace that await you on the other side of your current labor. They remind you that you are already worthy of the life you are building and that every small step you take is a testament to your own value. The letter should be specific, addressing the particular challenges you are navigating right now and offering the wisdom that only your future self can provide. If you are struggling with a specific habit, your ideal self tells you why that habit matters and how it has transformed their life for the better. If you are feeling discouraged by a lack of progress, they remind you of the laws of the harvest, assuring you that the seeds you are planting today will inevitably bear fruit. This communication creates a powerful psychological bond between your present and your future, making the abstract concept of your potential feel like a living, breathing reality. You are no longer working for a ghost. You are working for a friend who loves you and who is waiting for you at the end of the path. When you read this letter, you experienced the synthesis of Rohn's rigor and Roger's grace in a deeply personal way. You feel the call to higher standards and greater discipline, but you feel it as an invitation rather than a demand. The pressure of the ideal self is replaced by the pull of a compelling vision, a magnetic force that draws you forward with a sense of excitement and purpose. You realize that the discipline you once feared is actually the path to the very love and acceptance you have been seeking. By honoring your future self through your daily actions, you are practicing the highest form of self-care, ensuring that the masterpiece of your life is built on a foundation of integrity and devotion. The luxury of discipline is the ability to live a life that is congruent with your deepest truths, a life where your actions and your aspirations are in perfect alignment. This state of being is not reserved for the lucky or the gifted. It is the result of a conscious decision to take the architectural tools into your own hands. You are the only one who can design your life plan, and you are the only one who can execute the disciplines required to bring it into reality. By merging the philosophy of personal responsibility with the psychology of unconditional worth, you create a framework for living that is both powerful and peaceful. You become the master of your own becoming, a person whose self-esteem is rooted in the quiet knowledge that they are building a life of significance and beauty. As you move forward with your design, remember that the architecture of the self is never truly finished, as the process of becoming is a lifelong endeavor. Your ideal self will continue to evolve as you grow, offering new directions and higher standards for you to pursue. This is not a cause for frustration, but a celebration of the infinite nature of human potential. You are a vast and complex territory, and the work of exploring and developing that territory is the most noble pursuit you can undertake. Every day provides a new opportunity to refine your blueprint, to strengthen your foundation, and to add new layers of beauty to the structure of your existence. The discipline required for this work is the highest form of luxury because it provides you with the one thing that money cannot buy, a sense of authentic self-possession. When you are the architect of your own life, you carry your home within you, a sanctuary of integrity and purpose that remains stable regardless of the external conditions. You are no longer searching for validation from the world because you have already found it in the relationship you have with your own soul. Your self-esteem is unshakable because it is built on the daily practice of keeping promises to yourself and moving toward the person you know you can become. This is the luxury of the integrated human, the prize that awaits those who are willing to merge the labor of the philosopher with the love of the nurturer. The letter from your ideal self should be kept in a place where you can return to it whenever the weight of the journey feels too heavy. It serves as a reminder of the contract you have made with your own potential, a sacred document that outlines the terms of your own expansion. When you read it, you are reconnecting with the part of you that is already whole, already successful, and already at peace. This connection provides the emotional fuel you need to maintain your disciplines during the seasons of struggle, keeping your eyes fixed on the lighthouse of your aspirations. You are not alone on this path. You are accompanied by the person you are becoming every step of the way. Designing your life requires you to be ruthless with the distractions and the expectations that do not align with your core values. You must have the courage to say no to the plans that others have for you, even when those plans are comfortable or prestigious. True luxury is the ability to walk away from anything that diminishes your spirit or compromises your integrity. By clearing away the clutter of the default life, you create the space required for your true architecture to emerge. This process of subtraction is just as important as the process of addition, as it allows the essential beauty of your character to be seen and felt. The Jim Rohn pillar of design and the Carl Rogers pillar of becoming are not opposing forces, but the two sides of the same coin of human excellence. Discipline provides the structure, and love provides the life force. Without the structure, the life force is dissipated, and without the life force, the structure is a prison. Together, They create a dynamic and resilient system that allows you to navigate the complexities of the modern world with grace and power. You are the architect who understands both the physics of the building and the needs of the inhabitant, creating a life that is both structurally sound and deeply nourishing. This is the path of the elevated within, the journey of those who refuse to settle for a life that is anything less than a masterpiece. As you continue to build your ideal self-architecture, notice how the quality of your presence begins to change. You move through the world with a different kind of energy, a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are in alignment with your own design. You are no longer chasing the ghost of who you should be. You are inhabiting the reality of who you are becoming. This congruence is the source of a profound and unshakable peace, a state of being where you are at home in your own skin and in your own life. You have turned the struggle of self-improvement into the luxury of self-expression, making every moment an act of creation. The goals you set are the milestones of this creative journey, markers of the progress you are making as you move toward your highest potential. Each achievement is a celebration of the disciplines you have maintained and the love you have shown to your future self. But the true reward is not the goal itself. It is the person you have become in the process of reaching it. You are the ultimate product of your own labor, a living testament to the power of a well-designed life. The architecture you are building is not just for your own benefit, but serves as a beacon for others, showing them what is possible when a human being chooses to live with intention and grace. The letter from your ideal self is a living document, one that can be updated and refined as you gain more insight into your own nature. As you achieve your current goals and inhabit the reality you are currently designing, your vision of the future will expand, calling you to even greater heights of discipline and love. This is the beautiful paradox of the process of becoming. The more you achieve, the more you realize how much further you can go. You are caught in a cycle of positive expansion, where every success provides the foundation for the next level of your development. This is the true meaning of a life well lived, a continuous unfolding of potential that never reaches a final boundary. Discipline is the bridge between your thoughts and your results, the mechanism that turns the abstract blueprint into a physical reality. Without it, your designs are mere fantasies, beautiful ideas that never find a home in the world. But with it, you become a co-creator of your own destiny, a force of nature that can shape the material of existence to match the vision of your soul. This power is a heavy responsibility, but it is also the greatest gift you have been given. By choosing to embrace the luxury of discipline, you are honoring that gift and proving yourself worthy of the vast potential you carry within. The synthesis of these philosophies allows you to stand in the center of your life with a sense of absolute authority and profound humility. You are the architect, yet you are also a student of the process, always learning, always adjusting, and always moving toward the light. You realize that your self-esteem is not something you have to earn from the world, but something you build within yourself through the consistent application of your principles. This internal fortress is your greatest asset, a source of strength that can never be taken away, and a sanctuary of peace that is always available to you. You have integrated the hard and the soft, the labor and the love, into a unified whole that is both unshakable and evolving. The luxury of discipline is ultimately the luxury of being yourself, fully and without apology. It is the freedom to inhabit a life that you have designed, a life that reflects your values, your passions, and your unique contribution to the world. By taking the time to write the letter from your ideal self and to commit to the daily disciplines that support your growth, you are taking ownership of your own existence. You are no longer waiting for permission to be great. You are creating the conditions for your own greatness to flourish. The journey is long and the work is demanding, but the person you are becoming is worth every ounce of effort and every moment of devotion. Your ideal self is not a distant stranger, but the most authentic version of you, waiting to be revealed through the process of design and discipline. Every time you act in alignment with your blueprint, you are bringing that version of yourself into the present moment, blurring the line between who you are and who you want to be. This is the magic of congruence, the point where the real and the ideal become one and the same. You are the architect of this union, the one who bridges the gap and makes the vision real. The luxury of this achievement is the highest fulfillment of the human spirit, the ultimate destination of the elevated within. As you move through the world, carry the vision of your ideal self in your heart, using it as a compass to guide your choices and a shield to protect your integrity. Remember that you are building a life that is meant to be lived, not just achieved, and that the beauty of the architecture is found in the quality of the moments it contains. The discipline of your design should create the space for joy, for connection, and for the deep satisfaction of a life well lived. You are the master of the balance, the one who ensures that the structure of your life always serves the life of your soul. The blueprint is in your hands, the materials are ready, and the work of a lifetime is waiting for your touch. The ultimate realization of the integrated human begins when you stop viewing your life as a series of accidents and start seeing it as a deliberate construction of your own philosophy. You must accept that while the winds of circumstance blow on us all, it is the set of the sail that determines where you land at the end of the day. This shift from a victim of the weather to a navigator of the soul is the first step in building a self-esteem that cannot be toppled by the changing tides of the world. When you take full responsibility for the direction of your life, you reclaim the power that you previously surrendered to the opinions of others and the whims of fate. This is the bedrock of a disciplined existence, a foundation that allows you to stand firm when the storms of life attempt to wash away your progress. The set of the sail is not a one-time adjustment, but a daily commitment to the minor fundamentals that define your character. You recognize that a few small errors in judgment, repeated every day, will lead to a catastrophe, while a few small disciplines, practiced every day, will lead to a magnificent harvest. This mathematical certainty of personal growth provides a sense of peace that transcends the chaotic noise of the modern world. You are no longer guessing at your future, because you are actively creating it through the choices you make in the quiet hours of the morning. Discipline becomes the outward evidence of an internal philosophy that values the future self over the momentary impulses of the present. As you refine the set of your sail, you must also cultivate the qualities of the person of tomorrow, an individual who is profoundly open to the full spectrum of human experience. This means moving away from the rigid facades and defensive postures that characterize a fragile ego and moving toward a state of fluid, ongoing discovery. You learn to trust your own internal compass, sensing the subtle signals of your intuition and the honest needs of your spirit. The person of tomorrow does not fear change or new information, but welcomes it as the raw material for further evolution and deeper understanding. This openness creates a psychological flexibility that allows you to navigate the complexities of life with a sense of wonder rather than a sense of threat. Trusting your own internal organism is a radical act of self-reliance that requires you to silence the external critics and the internalized voices of societal expectation. You begin to realize that the most reliable source of wisdom for your life is found within your own lived experience and your own honest reflections. When you stop looking for validation from the outside, you discover a wellspring of confidence that is rooted in your own authenticity. This internal trust is not a form of arrogance, but a humble recognition that you are the only one who can truly navigate the unique path of your existence. It is the practice of being fully present with yourself, honoring your feelings and your insights as the primary data points for your decisions. The unshakable self is the grand synthesis of these two powerful forces, a being who is soft on the inside and hard on the outside. This internal softness is the Carl Rogers pillar of profound empathy, kindness, and unconditional acceptance for your own humanity. You maintain a climate of internal safety where you can look at your flaws and your failures without the distorting lens of judgment. This softness is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of a highly developed and secure emotional core. It allows you to remain perceptive to the needs of your soul and the nuances of your environment, ensuring that your growth is always rooted in the truth of who you are. Conversely, the external hardness is the Jim Rohn pillar of unwavering discipline, consistency, and philosophical rigor. You present a face to the world that is defined by the strength of your commitments and the reliability of your actions. This hardness is the protective shell of your character, the structural integrity that ensures your values are translated into tangible results. It means that you are a person of your word, someone who does what they said they would do long after the mood in which they said it has left them. By combining this internal grace with this external grit, you become a force of nature that is both resilient in the face of hardship and sensitive to the beauty of life. This integrated approach transforms the way you handle the inevitable setbacks and failures that accompany any ambitious journey. When you fall short of your standards, the internal softness allows you to offer yourself the forgiveness and the safety required to recover quickly. You do not waste energy on the shame spirals that paralyze so many people, but instead use your self-acceptance as a springboard for renewed action. The external hardness then steps in to analyze the failure with clinical precision, identifying the adjustments needed to the set of your sail. You take responsibility for the error without allowing it to define your worth, maintaining your momentum through the power of your philosophy. The advanced application of this synthesis in daily life requires a constant awareness of the reputation you are building with your own soul. You must realize that every choice you make is a vote for the person you wish to become, and that your self-esteem is the cumulative score of these daily decisions. When you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you are making a deposit into the bank of your own self-respect. Over time, these deposits accumulate into a massive reservoir of confidence that cannot be drained by the criticisms of the world. This internal reputation is the only one that truly matters, as it is the one you must live with every moment of your life. Building this reputation requires you to be meticulous with the minor fundamentals that others might overlook as insignificant. You understand that the way you do anything is the way you do everything, and that excellence is a habit rather than an act. Whether it is the way you organize your desk, the way you speak to a stranger, or the way you handle your finances, every detail is an opportunity to reinforce your philosophy. This commitment to small-scale integrity creates a sense of internal order that radiates outward into every area of your existence. You are no longer living a fragmented life, but a unified one where your actions and your values are in perfect harmony. The person of tomorrow is also characterized by a profound sense of autonomy, a realization that they are the primary architect of their own meaning. You stop waiting for the world to give you a purpose and start creating that purpose through the disciplines you choose to master. This autonomy is the ultimate expression of human freedom, the ability to define your own standards and to live by them regardless of the social climate. It allows you to stand alone when necessary, anchored by the strength of your internal philosophy and the safety of your self-love. You become a person who is difficult to manipulate and impossible to discourage, because your source of power is entirely internal. In the professional realm, the unshakable self navigates the pressures of competition and the risks of innovation with a calm and steady hand. You are not driven by the desperate need for external validation, but by the internal desire to express your potential and to contribute value. This shifts your focus from the outcome to the process, allowing you to perform at your highest level without the paralyzing fear of failure. You see your career as a laboratory for the development of your character, a place where the disciplines of the philosopher and the insights of the psychologist meet. This perspective makes you a more effective leader and a more resilient worker, as your worth is not tied to the fluctuating metrics of success. Socially, the integrated human interacts with others from a place of abundance rather than a place of lack. Because you have already provided yourself with the unconditional positive regard you need, you are no longer searching for it in the eyes of others. This allows you to be more authentic, more generous, and more present in your relationships, as you have nothing to prove and nothing to hide. You can afford to be vulnerable because your core is secure, and you can afford to be kind because your boundaries are firm. Your presence becomes a source of stability and inspiration for those around you, as you model the peace that comes from an integrated life. The advanced practice of this philosophy involves a continuous audit of the ideas you allow to take root in the garden of your mind. You must be the guardian of your own consciousness, filtering out the toxic narratives of the culture and the limiting beliefs of your past. You replace these weeds with the high-quality seeds of empowering philosophy and compassionate self-reflection. This mental hygiene is a non-negotiable discipline, as the quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life. By curating your internal environment, you ensure that the seed of your potential has the best possible chance to reach its fullest expression. To solidify this transformation, you must engage in the 90-day challenge, a period of intentional focus where the pillars of the integrated human are tested and refined. You commit to one major discipline that represents the Rohn-style set of your sail, a non-negotiable action that you will perform every single day without exception. This discipline should be something that challenges you, something that requires you to exercise your will and to honor your philosophy. At the same time, you practice one Rogers-style daily self-reflection, a journal entry where you explore your internal state with total honesty and kindness. This dual approach ensures that your progress is both structurally sound and emotionally grounded. During these 90 days, you will inevitably encounter days when the discipline feels heavy and the reflection feels difficult. These are the moments when the integrated human is truly forged, as you learn to navigate the tension between your desire for comfort and your commitment to growth. You use the Rogers softness to understand your resistance and the Rohn hardness to move through it anyway. This process of overcoming your own internal friction is what builds the unshakable self-esteem you seek. Each day that you complete both tasks, you are strengthening the bond with your own soul and proving that you are a person of substance and integrity. The journal entry should not be a report of your activities, but an exploration of your internal weather and the signals of your organism. You ask yourself how you are truly feeling, what you are learning about your own nature, and where you are still holding onto judgment or defense. You practice the art of being a neutral observer of your own experience, providing yourself with the empathic understanding that facilitates real change. This daily dialogue between the commander and the nurturer creates a level of self-awareness that is the prerequisite for sophisticated self-governance. You are learning to listen to yourself with the same intensity that you bring to your external goals. The major discipline you choose serves as the anchor for your day, a fixed point in the shifting currents of your life. It is the tangible evidence of your commitment to the set of your sail, a ritual that reinforces your identity as a disciplined human being. Whether it is a rigorous physical practice, a deep work session, or a commitment to a specific study, this discipline provides the structure upon which your self-esteem is built. By keeping this promise to yourself for 90 days, you are creating a new baseline for your character, a level of consistency that will serve you for the rest of your life. You are proving that you have the power to change yourself, and by extension, the power to change your world. As you move through the challenge, you will notice a shift in your internal climate, a move from a state of conflict to a state of congruence. The civil war within your spirit begins to subside as the commander and the nurturer learn to work together toward a common goal. You no longer feel the need to whip yourself into shape because your disciplines are now fueled by self-love rather than self-hatred. This alignment creates a sense of effortless power, a state of flow where your actions are the natural expression of your most deeply held values. You are no longer performing a role, but inhabiting a reality that you have consciously designed. The unshakable self is not a person who never feels fear or doubt, but a person who has a consistent way of handling those emotions. You recognize that fear is often a signal that you are moving toward the boundaries of your current comfort zone, and you welcome it as a sign of growth. You use your internal softness to acknowledge the fear and your external hardness to move through it with disciplined action. This ability to act in the presence of discomfort is the true definition of courage and the ultimate evidence of an integrated personality. You are no longer a prisoner of your emotions, but a master who uses them as data for your journey. The long-term application of these principles leads to a life that is characterized by a profound sense of fulfillment and peace. You are no longer chasing the temporary highs of external success because you have found a permanent source of satisfaction in the quality of your own character. Your self-esteem is unshakable because it is not based on what you have, but on who you are and how you conduct yourself. You have built a reputation with yourself that is based on years of kept promises and radical self-acceptance. This is the luxury of the integrated human, the prize that awaits those who are willing to do the deep work of merging labor and love. You must remember that the process of becoming is a lifelong endeavor, a continuous unfolding of potential that never reaches a final destination. Your philosophy will continue to evolve as you gain more insight, and your disciplines will continue to expand as you set higher standards for your life. This is the beautiful journey of the elevated within, a path of constant refinement and expansion. You are the architect, the builder, and the inhabitant of your own existence, and every moment is an opportunity to add new layers of strength and beauty to your soul. The horizon is always moving, and you are always moving toward it with the quiet confidence of a master navigator. The synthesis of these two pillars creates a framework for living that is both productive and peaceful, both disciplined and kind. You have the structural integrity to achieve great things and the emotional safety to enjoy them. You are no longer a house divided against itself, but a unified force that is moving with purpose and grace. This internal harmony is the greatest gift you can give to yourself and to the world, as it allows you to show up with your full power and your full heart. You are a living testament to the possibility of a life that is both rigorous and empathic, both grounded and expansive. As you look in the mirror each day, you should see a person who is worthy of their own respect and love. You should see a navigator who has set their sail with intention and a gardener who has tended their soul with care. The reflection you see is not a finished product, but a masterpiece in progress, a work of art that is being created through the choices you make in every moment. Your self-esteem is the quiet hum of this creative process, the sound of a life that is in perfect alignment with its own highest truths. You are the integrated human, and your journey is just beginning. This level of self-possession allows you to navigate the world with a sense of quiet authority that cannot be faked or stolen. You are no longer a victim of the wind or a prisoner of your own judgment, but a master who understands the laws of the harvest and the power of the set of the sail. You have built an internal sanctuary where the truth is spoken with love and the work is done with joy. This is the ultimate destination of the journey toward an unshakable self, a state of being where you are at home in your own skin and in your own life. You are the architect of your own peace, the builder of your own strength, and the master of your own destiny. The reputation you have with yourself is the only one that truly matters in the quiet hours of the night and the heat of the day's battles. If you can look in the mirror and know that you are a person who listens to the truth and acts with integrity, you possess a wealth that no economy can take away. You are building a self that is integrated, resilient, and profoundly alive, moving through the world with the quiet authority of someone who has nothing to prove and everything to become. The mirror is no longer a judge to be avoided, but a partner in the ongoing masterpiece of your life. Subscribe now to continue the journey of the elevated within and master the art of your own becoming.